So, with the election now less than 8 months away, it's become very clear what Republicans' plan is to win in November. They're going to raise the stakes with the rhetoric around immigration and repeat these baseless lies about a Democratic Party plot to replace and overthrow America with immigrants. I'm going to show you a few clips from Republican Chip Roy, including him admitting this was the Republicans' fault for not securing the border, then show you something Elon Musk just posted. But first, I want to show you how serious and how extreme Republicans are getting on this issue, starting with the former president's own words.
Biden's conduct on our border is by any definition a conspiracy to overthrow the United States of America. You know, he talks about democracy. He is a danger to democracy. He is. Number one, he goes after his political opponent, which nobody's ever done in this country. They do it in third world countries very well. They do it. But they're not going to succeed with us. They're not going to succeed. It's making us stronger. It's making us stronger. Biden and his accomplices want to collapse the American system, nullify the will of the actual American voters, and establish a new base of power that gives them control for generations.
So that has become Trump's go-to line. This is an invasion of immigrants perpetrated by the Democrats and a conspiracy to overthrow the United States. No basis in reality, of course, and we'd be remiss if we didn't remind you that the Republicans rejected the bipartisan border deal negotiated by conservative Republicans in the Senate because they want to run on chaos at the border. Now, here's Chip Roy in a video he just released talking about the foreign-born population in America and how they're undercutting Western civilization. And afterwards, I'm going to show you how Chip Roy himself acknowledged Republicans are to blame for the crisis at the border.
I think what we need to understand is the why here. And I think a number that will surprise you if you don't know this, unless you've heard me say it, 50 million, 50 million of our American population are foreign born. That puts it at roughly 16-ish%, and it depends if you round up a little bit, 16 or 17%, it's like 50 something million. They all have about 20 to 25 million kids. That puts that number well up into the 20% of the overall population. Now, why do I bring that up? Well, because that's the highest level we've ever had. It's higher than the late 19th century. Whether you're talking about the Asian community, from China, or you're talking about the German, Polish, Irish, whatever, in the late 1800s, right? We have all this. It all dropped off, and it was kind of at its lowest point in the 1960s, 70s, right? In terms of percentage foreign born. And since the 60s, early 70s, it's been doing this, and then just accelerating. So now we have a massive percentage at a moment where we're not teaching our children that America's great. We're not teaching our children that God exists. We're not teaching our children the values of the Constitution or Western civilization. There are exceptions. Most of the people on this, screen here, everybody on this are, probably more inclined to teach their children that or go to classical school or homeschool. But the vast majority of Americans aren't doing that. Here's another startling statistic that's related. In 2007, 17% of Americans checked the box unchurched. Today, 28% check that box. So you do the math. 28% is now the biggest category. Bigger than evangelicals, bigger than Catholics. Then add in other groups, Jewish and other groups, other sects. So my point of all of that is just to say, to the point about border security and immigration, it's purposeful by Democrats. They're flooding the zone, overwhelming the system. They don't believe that people will be removed ultimately. They believe ultimately they'll be able to get them to be voters. And once and for all, they can kind of wipe the slate away from the core values that this country was founded upon. And I think that's what everybody needs to know. How bad do you think it is? It's worse.
Really just disgusting rhetoric. But also, notice how Republicans romanticize this era before the 1960s, before the Civil Rights Act, and are now basically just calling for religious education and homeschooling. They want to take this country backwards in time. Now, before I show you Chip Roy in his own words laying blame at the border on Republicans, here's what Elon Musk, who, by the way, is foreign born. He's part of that group Chip Roy just announced. But here's what he just put up on Twitter and pinned to the top of his page saying, quote, "This is what's actually happening. Spoiler alert, it's not."
The Democrat open borders plan to entrench single-party rule, explained in under 2 minutes. 1. Flood the country with untold millions of illegals by land, sea, and air from all over the world, enough to eclipse the populations of 36 individual U.S. states so far. 2. Prioritize the needs of these millions of non-citizens over the needs of the American citizen, with free flights, buses, hotels, meals, and phones, ensuring their loyalty to the political party that imported them. 3. Keep them in the country at all costs, even when they commit violent crime like murder and rape. Attack the language used to describe the criminals, as opposed to the criminals themselves. Slander critics as racist. 4. Ensure their privileges are made irrevocable with city and state sanctuary laws that act as population magnets. Codify permanent status and ensure non-cooperation with ICE. 5. Count the non-citizens in the census that will determine congressional apportionment in the House of Representatives. As of now, that would equal 13 extra congressional districts, a tremendous amount of electoral power. 6. Wage a massive, heavily funded lawfare campaign to change state voting laws that legalize mass mail-in ballots, no signature verification, and no proof of citizenship requirements, making it nearly impossible to prove voter fraud. 7. Lock in the permanent voting majority with campaign promises of lavish benefits and permanent privileges, enshrining generational fealty to the Democrat Party. 8. Win elections. 9. Entrenched single-party rule has been achieved. The best part? Your tax dollars are paying for it.
So you can see this is just a potent political weapon for people who want a Republican in office. They're betting that their voters are so stupid that they won't realize that it's Republicans who are to blame for the crisis at the border.
No, we're not going to just pass the buck and say that, oh, any president can walk in and secure the border. I saw former President Trump make that allegation earlier today on one of his social media posts. All the president has to do is declare the border is closed, and it's closed. Well, with all due respect, that didn't happen in 2017, 18, 19, and 20. There were millions of people who came into the United States during those 4 years.
So there, Chip Roy fires back at the former president over his claims that Biden can just secure the border on his own and doesn't need a border bill, which Chip admits is false. Here's Chip admitting that Republicans wouldn't even act when they had the presidency and both chambers of Congress.
Another member of Congress resigned today. So now I'll be told, Chip, we only have a 1-seat majority or 2-seat majority. I don't even know what it is anymore. Let me ask you a question. Does it matter? In 2018, we had the House, we had the Senate, we had the White House, and we had a bigger majority than we have today, and we utterly failed to secure the border. Totally dropped the ball, didn't do it.
And here's what Britt Hume had to say about the border, Fox News' chief political analyst.
Look, think of what the Republicans are doing, for example, Kevin, on the border issue. They said that they wouldn't pass aid to Ukraine and other places unless there was action on the border. So the Senate produced a bill negotiated by one of its most conservative Republican members on the border, which had some defects in it, as compromise measures always do. And it was nonetheless the strongest border protection bill that I've seen in my time in Washington. And the House simply announced it was not going to take it up, so it failed even in the Senate.
The most conservative border bill he's ever seen, which was also endorsed by the Trump-supporting head of the Border Patrol Union. And Republicans killed it. And we know why, because Trump said so in his own words.
Why were you against the House, against the Senate border deal, the bipartisan border?
Well, they allow 5,000 people a week, but a lot of people took it as 5,000 people a day. It made it much better for the opposing side.
You know, he just admitted it. He sabotaged our bipartisan deal to secure the border because it made it much better for the opposing side. You know who the opposing side is? In this case, it's America. Donald Trump roots against America every chance he gets. He's only in this for himself.
That's what this really all comes down to. Trump and MAGA want a crisis at the border. They want chaos so they can run on stopping it despite never having done anything to show they're actually serious about solving this issue. We can be sure that this rhetoric will get more extreme, more hateful, and more dishonest as the election approaches. Because that's what happens when you have no actual record to run on. When you obstruct actual legislation to deal with these quote-unquote crises, then you have to hope your base is too stupid to realize you are actually the problem. And that's what they are doing.